this point, let us take a few minutes to discover an urban landscape of a bygone age, the Barry. Barry is an Occitan term which originally designated the city walls and came by association to denote the streets around the walls, both inside and more often outside the ramparts. In certain villages, the Barry became a popular location for an evening stroll. The term Barry forms the root of the French verb barouler, to stroll, but also to turn around in circles aimlessly. Join us as we baroule in virtual reality, taking a turn around the village outside of the walls. A 3D reconstruction has been created to give a clear picture of this unique space. The distinct nature of the Barry comes from its proximity to the village. The fields nearest the settlement were the most prestigious, the most productive, and the most valuable. This is due to the fact that they received the greatest quantity of manure, benefiting from proximity to the stables in the village. Their location also meant that they were under constant surveillance. The fields nearest the village were thus used for specific types of production, different to those encountered at the surrounding countryside. First, closest to the walls, and in some place up against them, we find kitchen gardens and alfalfa fields, followed by fields of high-yielding cereal crops. We know that the fields where the most manure was spread could produce up to 5 times more grain, with a harvest ratio of 15 harvest seeds to 1 sowed, compared to 1 harvest to 3 or 4 sowed in a good year for other fields. This highly fertilised land was agricultural gold. As the kitchen gardens around Saint-Nazaire were also walled, there were a high density of dry stone walls around the village. Some of the garden walls were up to 2 metres high, surrounded by brambles intended to dissuade climbing. The gardens were of critical importance in feeding the village population. Cultivated all year round, these highly productive plots received the best possible fertiliser in the form of chicken manure. In winter, they provided a supply of brassicas, which together with bacon tided the villagers over during the hungry gap. These were identified as caulifloris by Olivier de Serres in 1600. Up until the 19th century, when famine ceased to be a regular occurrence, hunger and consequently the food supply was a constant preoccupation. This can be seen from the height of the protective walls around the gardens. The villagers also needed to feed their livestock. Horses rare, oxen few and limited to the bigger small holdings outside the village, for example at Le Brusquet. Donkeys many, generally ridden by women in the region, as noted by Jean Racine, who spent a few months nearby in Uzès. Mules, many used for agricultural purposes, notably drawn the plough, and sheep with a flock of around 300 animals. Flock size varied over the years, with repeated outbreaks of disease decimating the population. Strolling around the outside of the village walls in our chosen year of 1631, we also come across fields of alfalfa. Alfalfa is an excellent hay crop, and the harvest was destined for the hostelry to feed visitors' horses. At this time, the 2 alfalfa fields and the hostelry belonged to the wealthiest of the local farmers, one Jean Coste Esquire, bailiff and son of Bartholomew Coste, who also had served as bailiff like his father and forefathers before him. Near the village, there also stands a single mulberry tree, almost certainly a relic of an abortive foray into the silk industry by the ancestors of Jacques Fabre, whose house lies outside the enclosure. A few other buildings can also be found outside the walls. These include the Coste House, inhabited by the family of bailiffs mentioned above. Although they had the right to inhabit the manor house, dwelling outside of the village was a sign of social dominancy. In this way, the family representative of the Count of Grignan one of the region's most powerful magnates, were able to mark their status. Their farm might have looked something like this, closed in on itself, with, as we see from the registers, a stable, a hayloft, a courtyard and a new biz, a type of shelter. Finally, the hostelry was situated along the road with, according to the same registers, a pathway right around the building.